Ok, buenos días, un día más en San Francisco. Aquí vamos a desayunar. Hoy tenemos bastantes cosas que hacer. Vamos a ver a un viejo amigo de El Salvador, que ya tengo años de que no lo veo. Y casualmente él vive en San Francisco, entonces lo vamos a ver hoy. Vamos a ir a una fiesta de salvadoreños. Que hace mucho no asisto a una fiesta de salvadoreños. Y vamos a ir tal vez a un parque. Vamos a ir de nuevo al bridge, al puente, pero del otro lado. Así que acompáñanos, vamos a ir a desayunar ahora y nos vemos luego. Bye. Ahorita estamos en el desayuno. Jackie pidió Eggs Benedict. Yo pedí un sándwich que se llama San Francisco y eso trae salmón y huevo para desayuno. It goes all the way over there. That's exactly how it works.
Problem with theater on wheels, there's no curtains to hide the business. Hi, welcome. So, thousands of years, but as colonialism goes, the first European settlers arrived here, stuck a flag in the sand, declared this land Nueva España, New Spain, and then Mexico overthrew Spanish rule 30 years later, and this became Mexican California. Then the United States government just said, this land is ours, just stole the land. And 2 years later, Mexico officially surrendered the land, thinking that it wasn't particularly valuable. But what they didn't know is 9 days before they signed this treaty surrendering the land, something was found near Sacramento. Any idea what that something is?
Gold.
Gold! Gold! Yes, gold. I heard it everywhere. Gold! That's how I say gold. Now, has anybody ever been to Sacramento? Me either, because there's nothing to do. But it was just outside of Sacramento that John Sutter and James Marshall, they made a pact. And they said, you know what, we're not going to tell anybody about this gold. and it went down as one of the worst kept secrets in history. So pretty much this is what happened. All of the employees that worked at John Sutter's mill, they began collecting and then soon spending gold at a shop nearby. And mind you, the population at the time here was 500. So there were like 2 shops to choose from. And this man, Samuel Brannan, he owned the shop. He started to think, why do all of these people that work at John Sutter's mill have all this gold? So he went over to the mill, saw the gold for himself. He took a jar of it. He came down to our main square, not this one. We'll go to it though later in the tour. And he announced, gold! Wow, I heard that echo. And that's how the gold rush kicked off. Now, you might wonder, why did this man go and tell everybody about the gold? Because personally, if I found gold or money, I wouldn't tell anybody about it. But before he came and announced that he had found all this gold, he went around and he bought every last shovel, every pick, every axe, and in town. So if you wanted to buy supplies to go mining for gold, you had to come to him, to his shop. And he was selling shovels for about $25 each back then, which in today's economy is about $750. So he got rich. He learned a lesson very early on that if you wanted to get rich, you didn't need to find gold, you needed to find the gold miners. And here the population skyrocketed within the first year from 500 to 25,000, which is a lot of growth very quickly. And then within 3 years, it was 50,000. And as you can see, it kept growing. Yeah. Now people came from all over the world for the chances at riches and redemption, and they got it, a lot of them. Now the next year, John Geary donated this land, this particular land, the square that we're standing on, to the public. At the time, it was a giant sandbank known as O'Farrell's Mountain. Just picture a mountain of sand here. But they took all of the sand, they pushed it out this way, filled in the bay. And actually the financial district and Embarcadero are built on landfill. I don't know what that means for the next earthquake, but I imagine they thought about it. I hope so. Now, at the time when the square was developed, it was a religious center. There were 5 churches here, a synagogue, and the first Chinese temple in the United States of America. And one of the churches was the first Unitarian church. It was led by a man named Thomas Starr King. Now, back in the 1840s, California was still undecided about how it would participate in the American Civil War. Now, for those of you who don't know, there were 2 sides. I'll simplify it. Right? The Union, who said, no more slaves, and the Confederacy, which said, slaves. Yeah? And Thomas Starr King would come here and give impassioned speeches about how California must join the Union and not the Confederacy. And eventually they did, but we didn't have a lot of people here to send to fight the war, but we did have gold. So they sent that back east, financed the war, and ultimately helped decide the fate of the country. And Abraham Lincoln, president at the time, he called this man the orator who saved the nation. And the square was named in honor of him, Union Square, which is nice. But there's no plaque commemorating him, and this square is not particularly religious or political now, unless you're here to worship the gods of consumerism, in which case the Church of Victoria's Secret is rented. Now you might wonder, how did this change happen? And the answer is still over here. It's this hotel. This hotel, the St. Francis Hotel, changed the landscape of this area. It was built in 1904, and it brought in a lot of very rich people. So they started opening shops all over this area to cater to those people. And so it changed. And one of the most ridiculous stories that come out of that hotel was back in 1975. President Ford was there. He was giving a speech, and he went to go leave. And outside there was a woman. She had a gun. She pointed at him, fired, missed him by a few inches. And she goes to shoot him again, and this man tackles her to the ground, holds her there until Secret Service arrests her. Now this man, his name was Oliver Sipple, and he served in the U.S. Marines during the Vietnam War. And after the military, he came out to San Francisco. I mean, he came out as gay to his friends, right? And the press was writing about the story, and one of his friends was Harvey Milk. Have you all heard of Harvey Milk? Gay rights activist, very popular here in San Francisco, back in the 70s, I believe. He went to the press and he said, hey, you know that man that you're writing about who saved the president? Gay. And they were like, what? Manfield did. Unfortunately for Oliver, his family disowned him after this, but Harvey Milk considered the entire thing a success because it got the whole country talking about the gay rights movement that was happening here at the time, and a lot of good came from that. Now, rising up behind this hotel, you'll see an addition that was added in the 70s. If I could just hear a couple of words about how you feel about that addition in contrast with the main building. Just yell them out, just a word or two.
Ugly.
Ugly, I heard that.
Doesn't match.
Doesn't match. Mm-hmm. Let me get one more. Eyesore. Those all work. I just like to hear you all say it so I don't have to say it. So I want you all to take a mental picture of this building. So the same year that that addition was being made, the same architect was designing another building that would become known as the ugliest building in San Francisco. And we're going to go there later, so I just want you to remember what that looks like, and then later at the end of the tour you'll see it, the other building. So this behind me, this is Dewey Monument. It was built in honor of military Commodore George Dewey. That was his name. He defeated the Spanish Armada during the Spanish-American War, and the statue there is holding a palm wreath, which is in honor of President McKinley, who was killed by an assassin in 1901. Now the woman, you might wonder who she is, her name was Big Alma. She was called Big Alma because she was about 6 foot tall, when the average height for people in general was 5'3". So she was quite tall. She worked as an artist model. She became very popular when this was unveiled. She had a lot of suitors, including this man named Adolph Spreckles. And he was the heir to a sugar fortune, a sugar company. And the two of them fell in love. And as you probably experienced in your own life, people don't know how to mind their business, and so their romance raised eyebrows, right? Because of their class difference. He was very rich, she was very poor, and also their age difference. When they met, she was 20, he was 44 years old. But that didn't stop them from falling in love, and they got married, and it's actually from their union, this man, this sugar fortune man, and this beautiful woman, that we get the term sugar daddy. That's where that comes from, in case you were wondering. Now, Big Alma, she became known as the great-grandmother of San Francisco, not because she had any children, but because of her contribution to the arts, building museums that are still standing today, including the Legion of Honor and the San Francisco Maritime Museum. Now, in 1906, we experienced an earthquake here, and it flattened most of the buildings here. Actually, I'll talk about this later, but most of the buildings in the city were flattened. But Alma still stood tall, and she became this unofficial symbol of hope and promise to rebuild, and that contributed to her legacy as the great-grandmother of San Francisco. Any questions about all of that? Good, because I didn't have any answers for them. Grab this cup. Follow me! It's a huge street.
Very.
As you can imagine,
Esas son las luces que yo quería para el patio.
so if everyone could just gather over here, there's a lot of trash, but you know, it's a risk that we run. I feel like I either have a lot of kids or a lot of friends. I can, because I'm leading the group. Anyway, not that you're children, obviously. We're all children of God. That's true. Now, behind me, there's a building that was designed by the architect Frank Lloyd Wright. And Frank Lloyd Wright is considered by the American Institute of Architects to be the greatest American architect. And if you look through the window there, you can see that there's a spiraling ramp that goes up to the top of the building. And it's just like another building that Frank Lloyd Wright designed, the Guggenheim, which is in Manhattan. So if you ever go there, you'll notice that there's some similarities there. Frank Lloyd Wright also considered himself more of an artist than an architect, and he actually signed his buildings like an artist would a painting.
I do feel like you're about to.
but they don't all look the same. You might wonder, why are they not uniform? And the answer is, back in the 80s, we had to take our cable cars off the street for about a year. And our mayor was concerned that tourists wouldn't have something to talk about and do. So she called her friends in other cities and she said, can you borrow your streetcars for a year? And they said, yeah. So we have streetcars from England, from Mexico, from... So, how many of you noticed the sizable homeless population here in San Francisco? Can I just get an idea? How did that make everyone feel? How did they feel when they first got comfortable? Okay, so a lot of people wonder how San Francisco came to have such a large homeless population, and the answer is quite complicated, but one of the biggest contributing says, who the hell is William Lydersdorf? Because nobody knows who he is. But he was quite important. He was the founding father of California and the first black millionaire in California. Good for him. Now you might wonder, so back in the 1840s, America was not particularly kind to people of color, specifically black people. Slavery was legal until 1863. So you might wonder how this black man came to be so rich and powerful in the 1840s. And the answer is quite simple. He just looked like he was white. He was mixed race. He had an Afro-Caribbean mother and a Danish father. He was raised by an English businessman. This man raised him as a son, educated him as a son. And when he got older, this man sent William to New Orleans to live with his brother, the English businessman's brother. And there he learned how to be a merchant, how to run businesses, etc. And when he was in New Orleans, both the Englishman that raised him and his brother passed away a month apart from each other. And they both left all of their money and all of their estates to William. So he became quite rich very fast. Now, but it didn't work. And the mayor at the time, he thought of San Francisco as more of a European city. Also, remember I told you that William Lydersdorf opened the first school here? It was right up there. And also, the first American flag was raised right here, which is nice. So, when all the people that came to the country during the gold rush, San Francisco became their first taste of the United States, and a lot of the neighborhoods branched out specifically to New York specifically. And there were a lot of different ethnic enclaves at the time, like Sydney Town, Little Paris, Irish Hill, Russian Hill, and most of those were voluntary, but there were some people who were forced together but not voluntarily, and specifically people who came from China. They experienced a lot of discrimination at the time, and not just from the fellow people, but from the government itself. And one of the biggest examples of that was the Chinese Exclusion Act, which kept people from China, it kept them from legally immigrating to the United States for over 60 years. And it became the subject of a very big court case known as the United States versus Wong Kim Ark. Now, I'll explain this. Wong Kim Ark was a young man born here in San Francisco. When he was about 23 years old, he decided that he wanted to go to China to visit. And when he came back, they stopped him and they said, hey, what are you doing coming into the country? And he said, I'm a citizen. And they said, that's impossible. The Chinese Exclusion Act says that you can't be born. And he said, well, the 14th Amendment says that any person born in this country is a citizen of the United States. And they said, Let me check with my manager. I'll be right back. And they left him on that ship for 5 months. He was on a cargo ship for 5 months while the whole case went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, they eventually ruled to uphold the 14th Amendment, and that set the precedent for a lot of people moving forward. You know, before that, the 14th Amendment was mostly used for white people that were coming from other countries, not so much people of color. And so this set an example, it was written in stone, and a lot of people came here with that in mind. Even my parents, although I wasn't born here, so whoops. But it's part of the reason why we're such a melting pot that you see today. But yeah, with that, our tour concludes. I know you'll miss me. I have some mini guides for you all that I want to pass out. Oh, I want to take a selfie. Scratch that, selfie first.